It is my distinct honor to be able to come home again and see my brothers and sisters in this audience. It was in 1987 and 88 that I sat in that third row from the back, second seat on the left, and enjoyed all the presentations that we had, but probably most important, enjoyed the relationships that I established here. I want to talk to you today a little bit on a personal basis about faith, family, and service, all of which are interwoven together throughout my life, but certainly were reinforced while I was here at the War College. I want to share with you and give you a little heads up. It's about halfway through your year, and if you hadn't done so already, you have plenty of time to reset your life priorities. And I ask you to take a look at those order in faith, family, and service. Ensure that your family who are here meets the new you, especially those who have graduated from the Type A personality test and the invited class that you were asked to join as you retool your life so that you can go forward. I was a distinguished graduate of that class. You'll also be a better leader for having taken that class. So I ask you to each pay attention, take time for each other, and each of our speakers has spoken to that today. It's most important because these are your lifetime friends. Know that each subsequent assignment, each of those relationships will be there to support you. The second is being of service to others. The opportunity for me came after retirement. I knew when I was in the service how much I loved doing everything that I did, but within 24 hours I sent a postcard up to the Army Nurse Corps office and said, it's time to go. What I saw was an opportunity to go across the street to the VA hospital and to work there with my soldiers who were retired and to continue to work on my PhD. What I didn't realize that other assignments were in the wings and waiting for me. I got a call 24 hours before they were going to make that final assignment, and I was called by my big sister from the White House Fellows Program. And she said, I know you're getting ready to retire and go to the VA and do what you want to do, but I think I have another opportunity for you. She created that, and I went on to be a consultant in healthcare across this country. Something was missing. I miss my soldiers, and I miss my nurses. The call came one day when I was in Florida, folding clothes, telephone bent on my ear, and it was the call from Brigadier General Wally Johnson, who promoted me to colonel here at the school during my school year. He said, how would you like to make a big difference in the health care of a country? Well, I stood up, clothes went flying, I saluted on the telephone. I had finished my PhD, but I was still missing my troops and my nurses, and he offered me an opportunity to serve again, even though it was in the United Arab Emirates. I loved it. The country, the hospital, the opportunity over those 3 years was the best assignment that I ever had. But all assignments come to an end. The sad part there was that 3 years later, because of changes in regime in that country, because of changes in my personal life, I left a country that I loved, a job that I loved, and my husband of 18 years. I was devastated. I didn't know where to go. I'm from Philadelphia, South Philly, all my brothers and sisters are there, but I didn't want to go there. I received a phone call one evening. I mean, these are one of my periodic phone calls that I got from my War College study mate, Joe Monco. When I explained to him what was going on, he did not hesitate. He said, come home. I said, where's home? He said, home is with me. I'm in Florida. I have our doctor here. I'll help you find a home here, and we will have Wednesday night dinners every week. I realized then that we make our own families. It doesn't have to be the one we're born with or the one that we currently have home. You can reach out for a hand to have the family that you need. And I'm very pleased to have today my dear friends, Lieutenant Colonel and Mrs. Fred Blanchard, who was my family in 1977 when I was in Germany and needed a place for Sunday dinner. I don't cook. So I thank them for that. I also thank the White House Fellows Program in 1982, who pulled us all together to make contributions to the White House with President Reagan. And I do thank our dear Executive Director, Jack LaCure, who's here today. Most important in terms of adding to my family in that last assignment at Eisenhower, Fort Gordon, is I got a call that morning from a report saying that we were being brought in a young soldier who had just finished his AIT and was going on his first leave. He had just been involved in the U.S. air crash in North Carolina, and he was burned over 80% of his body. He was a patient there at Fort Gordon and was needed to convalesce for some years after that. When I went up to see him, his mom was there, and she said, "I'm so sorry, but I have to go back to work. Can you please take care of my son?" I said, "I promise you." Eventually, that young man became one of my 23 godchildren, and he's here today, Razan Corbin. Razan has Thank you. If you take a look at him, he is truly the miracle patient, and you will not see a scar on him from those disabilities that he had before. Thank you. I also went on and realized that when I lost my mother at a young age, General Hazel Johnson was the chief of the Army Nurse Corps at the time, and I was devastated. My mom was my best friend. And she said, "Well, don't you know the rule?" And I said, "What rule?" She said, "When you lose your mom, you get to have as many godmothers as you want." I said, "Really? You want to be my godmother?" And she said, "Sure, absolutely." But I took that sentiment with me and learned over the years in the UAE, and since then, whenever I lost one of my nurses, and I lost a number of them in the UAE, I would always go to their children and tell them the new rule about the godmother. And because of that rule, I am now blessed with 23 godchildren around the world, 2 of whom are with me today and are now my daughters. Cynthia A. Latimer, who is the Costco manager in Atlanta, soon to be relocated with mom in Vermont. And we have Tanya Killian. Her mom gave her to me in the United Emirates when she passed. Tanya is a pediatric nurse in London, born and raised in South Africa, and I hope to bring her home to Texas soon. Opportunities for service will come more quickly once you retire from here. I found it first with the local MOA chapter. Now, can you imagine, I'm a colonel, retired from the Army, 26 years service, never heard of MOA. Walked into a restaurant in Florida and saw a big sign, MOAA, military officers. So I went in and said, "What is this group? Who are you and what do you do?" Once they explained, I said, "Well, I belong here. I'm an officer and I want to serve." Working with those gentlemen and the ladies there in that chapter, we were able to make a big difference in Inverness, Florida, and across the state. From there, I was then called to duty at the national level for the MOA organization. And if General Tillelli was here, our chairman of the board, he would tell you, as I'm going to tell you now, when you think about what's going on in this world, what's going on in our country, and the downsizing of the military, there is only one group that is on the Hill advocating for you. And that means advocating for your pay raise, that should be 1.8, and that those in Congress and around the country were saying, no, 1%, 1%. So in case you didn't know, General Tillelli and MOA, we are on that Hill every week. We are advocating every day. You as military officers cannot march with me, but you can make your voice heard. So please join the organization and send in those cards and letters so we can take that up to the Hill and tell them, you cannot let them down. You cannot take away their money, their benefits, and the things that they need to do their job. My second opportunity came very shortly after that with Lieutenant General Gregg, who I had not seen in probably 15 years, when I was a lieutenant and he was still a lieutenant general then. But he called me and he said, "Sharon, you know how much I love the Army, but I want to tell you I'm doing something now that's more exciting and I think maybe more meaningful, and that is serving on the Board of Trustees of Excelsior College. It is the largest nursing university in the world. It is also 30% who are our troops who are around the world because it's a distance learning institution. And it allows adult learners to gather those credits that they earned across our country and around the world, pull them together and actually be recognized for that and get their degree. So I now work with General Gregg and Harry Staley, who I called the McDonald's mogul, on that board of trustees, and we are making opportunities for adults across this country to get the education that they need. My third and final opportunity came with the call to help nurses who were returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, but they were returning in silence. General Gail Pollock came to me and she said, "You've got to help me. They're not talking to each other." I was asked to speak at a medical surgical conference in Korea, and I asked them, about 50 nurses in the room, how many served in Iraq and Afghanistan. About half of them raised their hands. But they were looking at each other like, "Oh, you? I didn't know." They had not talked to each other even there in that assignment. They were not talking because they felt that others would not understand. I volunteered to do then what I did here at the War College for my project. I wanted to interview them and post those interviews of their accomplishments so that others could know what they were doing there and so that they could know that they're not alone. While here at the War College, I was allowed to do my work study project on qualitative interviews with nurses from Vietnam. They were then colonels in the Army Nurse Corps and about to retire, lost forever. They had never answered my question, including General Clara and her best friend Joyce Johnson, when I kept saying, "What happened?" They would not talk about Vietnam. My Colonel Johnson helped me devise the interviews so that I was able to interview those left on active duty and publish a paper here from the U.S. Army War College entitled, "You Won't Be Alone." That served as the basis in terms of my putting together the book Angel Walk, Nurses in Iraq and Afghanistan, the beginning of which is the study that I did here at the War College. Because I want you to know what the nurses are experiencing. I want their families to know and their communities. Because not all of them are active duty and going right back to their bases. They're going back to civilian communities and churches across this country, and we need to know what happened. We need to know how we can support them. The thing that I found most disturbing in doing those interviews was that buried in the book, as I was writing up, was the most vulnerable population that I serve. Those are the survivors of post-traumatic stress and military sexual trauma. I found these victims in our churches, in our community groups, and in the woods where our homeless sit now. We're trying to catch them on the civilian side to offer help, but I'm asking each of you to saddle up and join my posse. Pledge today that you will take a stand in each upcoming command assignment to say to me and to your command, "Not on my watch, not on my watch." Identify and prosecute those who are abusers, offer help and healing to the victims, and know that each of our daughters and sons will be safe in your command. Please remember the importance of faith, family, and service in a great future that awaits you. Know that the light in my heart meets, greets, and respects the light in your heart. Namaste.